Hi, and welcome to today's conversation about business plan mistakes and how you can avoid them. This is a topic that I am really passionate about because I have seen the power that a good business plan can have for every business. My name is Lorraine Ball, that's me, and I've been working with business owners for more than 25 years, helping them develop relevant business plans. And I want to start by saying to be really complicated, they don't have to be overblown. But if you want to succeed, you have to have a business plan. And that's really the first mistake that a lot of business owners make is thinking they know what they're going to do. They don't need a plan. The purpose of a plan is to force you to sit down and really think through all the different pieces of your business and how they're going to work together. So, what's in your plan? There's an executive summary. This is usually a 1 or 2 page overview of everything that the plan is about. Funny thing is, it appears at the beginning of your plan, but it may be, in many cases, the very last thing that you write. There's an overview of the history and the position to date, market research, an outline of what your strategy is. How are you going to position your company? What are you going to focus on in your business? Operations. This is the nuts and bolts of what your pricing is going to be and what your distribution strategy is going to be. Of course, you got to have the numbers. It's all got to add up. And the last piece is the appendix. And I like to think of this as the basement or the attic of your business plan. And this is where you tuck other information that is important, but really doesn't fit neatly into any of the categories. And we're going to take a closer look at these sections and how businesses make mistakes when they skip or don't pay attention to each of these sections. But before we do that, we need to talk about your audience. Because you see, you're not just writing this business plan to put on a shelf. If it's going to be valuable, there's a reason you're writing it. And depending on who you're writing that plan for, you're going to need to focus your attention in different areas of the plan. The first question is it for you or is it for a different group? If it's just for you, you may be able to get away with a 1 or 2 page plan that just kind of bullet points out what you're working on. But if you're looking for a loan, you need to have a more robust plan with a heavy concentration on the numbers, and everything needs to add up. Surprisingly, if you're putting together a business plan for investors, the numbers are not nearly as important as the idea and the people. Whereas a bank just wants to know, are you going to be able to pay them back? Investors are either investing because they already know and love you, or they are angel investors that put a lot of money in a lot of different businesses, and they know that some businesses are going to make it and some aren't. And what they're really looking for is, do you have the idea and the people? So for investors, it's about the research, it's about your management team and their experience, because they know that often entrepreneurs are a little bit enthusiastic and the numbers are often unrealistic. But the people and the idea, that's where the rubber meets the road. And if you're working on a business plan for your leadership team to create a roadmap for how you're going to move the business forward, where you need to spend your time is on the operating section of the plan. A common won't do a good job of defining who their customer is. And I know that you think you have a fabulous product and everyone's going to love it, but the truth is, everyone is not your customer. And to really drive home that point, I want to give you an example of soap. I mean, it's a pretty basic product. Almost all soaps are square, they're packaged the same. There's a little bit of difference in the coloring, but each one of these soaps is created for a different customer. And so, as you think about your customer, I want to take you through this exercise. You've got these three different soaps. Who are they targeting? Well, Ivory tends to target younger women. The whole market really for Ivory soap is the mom. It's the soap that she's going to bathe her baby with because it's so pure. There are no artificial ingredients. And so once you know who that customer is, now you can start thinking about, how do I reach that customer? Do I get referrals from pediatricians? Do I give away free soap in hospitals? How that customer? And it's very different than the oil of Olay product, which is also a bar of soap sold in the grocery store. But to women a little bit older, probably a little more affluent, these are women who have probably moved past their children, baby age. They're not running around driving carpool anymore, and they're much more focused on how they look and does the soap provide the moisture, make them look younger. And so now you're dealing with a different customer. They're hanging out in different places. They're spending their afternoons doing different things. Maybe you run an ad in Elle or Oprah magazine. And finally, Lava. This soap has a very specific niche. Male blue collar guy. Hands get dirty, or he's a white collar worker, but on the weekends he likes to work on cars. The vac cleans grease, and honestly, the very best thing that that Lava Soap ever did was they became the official soap of NASCAR. It made sense with who their customer was. And so you can see that as you target and define who your customer is, now you can begin to think about what's important to that customer. Distribution channels do I use? What marketing do I use? And where do I need to be priced against the competition? And just in consumer products, it's also true in B2B organizations. And so you can do this same chart, this same table, if you're a lawyer or an accountant or an IT company. Think about the kind of companies that you like to work with. I get it. Any business can use my services. I'm an accountant. Yeah. But there are certain kinds of companies that are going to gravitate towards you and others that are not. Figure out why, what it is about those companies. What is it about you? Is it the size of the company? Is it the industry that they're in? Maybe it's the stage that you're in. Maybe you're better with startups or with established businesses. Maybe you only work with companies in a geographic area, or maybe you work with companies that have a specific objective. They want to increase their productivity. They want to increase their power. Those may not be, not every company is going to do all of those things at once. So what is it that you do? What is it that your customers do? And where do you intersect? And next, once you do that, you want to build out a persona, a description of who that target customer is. And you can search the internet for all sorts of examples of personas. I really like this one. It's just a picture of the woman, some basic demographic facts, and then a little bit of detailed information on who she is and what's important to her. And again, even if you're B2B, you can do this. Think about who's making the purchase decision. Is it the owner? Is it the plant manager? Is it an office manager? Create a picture of that person. We were working with an orthodontist at one point. in addition to consumers, were actually the dentists that referred patients to her. And what she found is her persona was not the dentist. Her persona was the office manager, because the dentist would say, talk to Mary at the front desk. She'll give you a referral to an orthodontist we recommend. Spent a lot of attention on that channel, on those office managers. She got more referrals. So whether you're B2B or B2C, who's your customer, what's important to them, and how do you... Another mistake that businesses make when they're working on their plan is they put in too many details or the wrong details. They spend so much time giving you the history of the company, you're bored to tears before you get to what it is they're doing now and why you should care. And I always like to use this old story that I heard about a very impatient young man, and he goes to the home of an old scholar, and he demands that the scholar entire meaning of the Bible. The old man looks at the young man, and he stands on one foot and says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. All the rest is commentary. Now, the Bible is a complex work of literature, regardless of where you come down on the discussion of who wrote it or how it evolved. But I would suggest to you that that one statement, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, does a pretty good job of summing up the core meaning of that piece of work. Question is, can you do that? If I come to you and I ask you what your business is about, can you tell me what problem you solve, how you solve it, and who you solve it for? Standing on one foot, or in one or two brief paragraphs in writing. Next mistake that is so common is limited market research. Again, business owners are like, this is my business. I know. But do you? Do you really? Don't guess. Take the time to do some research. Do some surveys. Talk to people, not family members, about your idea and your concept. Go check out online databases. When I started my business, and of course, it's been a long time and the internet is much more robust now than it was then, but I sat down with a research librarian and she unlocked just businesses in my market. I had such a great picture of where the growth was, what kind of businesses were starting, because I took the time to do this, so I knew where to focus my attention. That's all secondary research. It's information that's collected about markets and trends for other purposes that may be of value to you. But don't stop there. Do some focus groups, have lots of conversations, and there are so many inexpensive survey and poll tools. Do a little bit of that research as well. And recognize that you're not in the market by yourself. There are other companies that do what you do or solve problems that you solve in different ways. I get really innovative. Nobody does what you do. Before you started your business, there were people out there with that problem, and they found someone to help them. You need to think about your competitors in three categories. The first is primary competitors. These are companies that do exactly what you do. You're a marketing company, they're a marketing company, you're a design company. When you're talking about and comparing your business to those businesses, you really need to focus on why, what it is about your solution and your approach that makes you better than the competition. Secondary competitors solve the same problem, but they do it in a totally different way. For example, a small business owner wants to grow. He can go to a marketing company, a business coach, or a sales coach. Each of those types of businesses will help move him along. Each of those types of companies can provide a solution to his problem. They are not the same. And so when you start moving away from your primary competitors and you start thinking about your secondary, now you have to think about, why is your solution better? Not just, I'm a better web designer than another web designer. I'm a better plumber than another plumber. But why is it better to solve the problem the way you solve it than the way another company is recommending solving it? And the third type of competitors are the most challenging. You don't run into them as often, but they are the most challenging. They're what I call the tertiary competitors. These are businesses that compete for the funds that would buy your product, but they don't solve the problem you solve at all. And so in that instance, you have to convince customers that they need to address your problem. I'll give you an example. When I was in the heating and air conditioning business, we had a contract for a new community in Arizona, and they were going to build 200 homes in this community, and we were going to install all in that community. So I had no other primary competitor. I did not need to talk about why my air conditioner was better than my competitor's air conditioner. I did not need to talk about why the air conditioner heat pump combination was better than the air conditioner furnace competition. We'd already resolved that, but I still had competition. Because if you've ever bought a home, a new home, what you know is, after the contract is signed, you go to the design center and you start picking out carpeting and windows and upgrades to your faucet. And everybody has a budget. They have so much money held aside just for the extras. And so if someone spent all of their extra budget on upgraded carpeting and fancy windows, when it came to a basic, investing in a upgrade in a higher efficiency air conditioner would lower their bills, leaving them more money that in a year or two they'd be able to afford to upgrade the faucet or the carpet. But if they did that now, they would never be able to have the comfort and the affordability and the long-term savings of that air conditioner. Once we understood who we were really competing against, we could create literature specifically for that market. Okay, once you do all of that, now you need to think about, what is the goal of your business? What are you trying to accomplish? And quantify it. You need to be specific. You've probably seen this a million times. Measurable, action-oriented, realistic, time-based. We're going to sell 500 units this year, 1,000 units next year. We're going to grow sales by X percent. Now, if you have sold 10 units a year for the last 10 years, jumping to 100 units, unless you've got a whole new operating plan, is just not realistic. So you've got to have very specific goals. There's got to be a way to take action to make them happen. And then you need to have milestones. what's going to happen, when will it happen, and who's going to do it. Who's going to make those things happen so that you achieve those goals. And those milestones are like little mile markers as you're driving down the highway that tell you you're getting closer. What this does is it prevents you from creating a plan and going off in all sorts of different directions with all these great ideas that are not specifically tied to goals. Because I don't want you to be a squirrel. And you know just what I'm talking about. Every time a new idea comes along, you're like, ooh, squirrel, ooh, nut, ooh, this. Oh, with a great idea, a marketing idea, a business idea, you need to go back and look at your plan and look at your goals and say, does it line up? Does it make sense with what I'm really trying to accomplish? And as you put your plan together, one of the other really critical mistakes that I see is unsupported financial projections. People throw a number out there, but as you read through the plan, you're like, wait a minute, you said you're going to make $100,000, but I only see an opportunity to sell 50 units. There's a disconnect. Your plan needs to show how many units, at what price, what are your expenses going to be? And they need to be realistic. Again, if you've been in business for any length of time, you already have a history. Start there. Your plan should include 3-year revenue projections, income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow projection. It's not enough that you're going to sell all this stuff if selling and delivering that sucks so many resources you can't pay your people until the money comes in. You got to have a way to keep things going while you're waiting for the payoffs on those sales. So you've got to have statements of, this is when I'm going to start the business. This is when I'm going to start selling. This is when I start getting paid. And so how are you going to keep it afloat until this first check comes? This is something that makes me crazy. It's not a nice place for business owners. There are all sorts of things that can go wrong. And you need to think about that and anticipate, what are you going to do if that does? It's not being negative, it's being proactive. How are you going to address external issues? How are you going to react if the economy crashes and burns, if there's a pandemic, if there's a hurricane, if there are regulatory issues? How are you going to keep the business rolling if there's a product failure, if a key employee leaves? What could go wrong, and what will you do if that does? You can't foresee every possible, but if you have a good plan for most contingencies, at least you'll have a starting point if, and honestly, when something doesn't work out exactly the way you expect. And finally, the last really big mistake that I see is that businesses often fail to communicate. They miss the opportunity to move their business forward because they don't talk to people. Once you create this plan, share it with your employees, share it with friends and family, share it with advisors, get feedback. You're often too close to this. The more you talk to others about your plan, the better the input is, the more options you will have considered, the better your plan is. And finally, don't put this off. You need to start today. You need to be working on your business plan now. Even if it's just assembling notes and gathering little scraps of paper and putting the pieces together, that's a great place to start. And if you're looking for other resources to build your plan, be sure to check out digitaltoolbox.club.